Hi, I'm Kathy Stockley from Michigan. We lived in a four-generation farm, and when my grandma passed away, my mom was going through a box of pictures, and I asked her who they were, and she said that, well, she thinks they're our relatives, and I said, well, they look a little black to me, and she said, now that everybody's gone, I can tell you some stories. So she tried to do a little bit of research, but she couldn't get past her grandfather, and so after she passed away, it was my journey to find the family history. And my grandpa had left a lot of different little clues. And what I found out when I went to check on his birth certificate and things, I found that when he was born in Canada, he was listed as African. And when he came over to the United States in around 1920, he had come during the wintertime, and he had his hat and his coat and scarf on, apparently, and they asked him what his race or nationality was, and he said English. So then he joined the U.S. Army, and he was shown as Caucasian, and from that point on, he was always Caucasian. So when we went back and did his history, I found out that his great-grandfather was involved in the Underground Railroad, and he had brothers named John Storm and Charles Storm, and they were from New York, and they were all free colored people, but they were also helping free slaves through New York. Two brothers were in New York, and one came to Michigan, and the one in Michigan was in Lapeer, Michigan, and they were helping the slaves get across to Canada either through Detroit or else through Port Huron area. And then the ironic part is that they were all buried in a cemetery in Mayfield Township, and I was a real estate broker, and I was having my continuing ed in just a few minutes, or just a few steps away in that township hall, and that's where we found all their graves. Now Moses Wright, who is my grandpa Wright's great-grandfather, they were involved in Lapeer. They were farmers, and him and his family were considered colored, and he was actually more white, had red hair, and he talked with an Irish brogue, is what I was told from some older cousins. And actually, when the Union ran out of white soldiers, they started drafting the colored soldiers, and his son was the oldest one, Charles Wright, and he was drafted, and I found his draft card, but his father took his place, which was allowed back then, shaved off 10 years, said he was 42, and he ended up joining the 10th Cavalry in Michigan, and was fought down in Tennessee and things. And then when he came back to be buried, they thought he was white, and he was supposed to be buried in Mount Hope Cemetery, but that they found out that he was actually listed as colored, so he had to be buried in the Stiles Cemetery. So it was just an interesting thing. We found out that several of our relatives were related. One was related to Frederick Douglass through his son, Frederick Douglass Jr. One of our cousins had married him. And then we also had a couple of other ones, but it was interesting to find that these different names that came up were actually in some of the history books. And I really enjoyed the presentation here, because when we took our kids and we were homeschooling, we brought them down south, and we found that there was a total different information down here than what was being taught when I was going to school. So I really do appreciate this, and I bought a couple of extra books and some of the DVDs, and plan on sharing them with all of our family, because my dad is from Bristol, Tennessee. So thank you for the opportunity.